Gear up as Cash Miller and a team of accomplished guests steer you on an enlightening voyage filled with valuable tips, fresh insights, and effective strategies. Welcome to Marketing Masters, the Agency Power Show.
Hello, everyone. This is Cash Miller, the host of Marketing Masters and the CEO of Titan Digital. We're here today with another great episode. I've got with me David Van Beekum of Tweeva. He is a TV expert when we're talking advertising on TV, but we're not thinking your traditional, hey, we're on the local, TV. We've got something really special for you today. David, it is great to have you with us, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your company.
Hey, Cash, thanks for having me on the show. Very much appreciated. So Tweeva is a first ever small business television network for small businesses and influencers. If you think about it, it's a network for small businesses in a city and influencers to create and share content across small business public televisions.
So it's real quick, this is like a kind of a newer concept, right? But something that, you've mentioned to me already that you've patented this and such, so it's like, it's part technology.
Yeah. This is a kind of a new concept, a new way for, us to walk over to a display somewhere in a public setting and kind of say, hey, I wanted to advertise on that. Maybe some of my customers are sitting at this coffee shop right now. And so can I pull out a mobile app, download the app, and add something that I do? If I'm a dog walker, can I go find some clients in the local coffee shop?
Okay, and so today we're going to be talking TV advertising, but we're not going to do it in your traditional sense. Like most people, when they think TV advertising, it'd be on the local, news channel or whatever, your local channel's an ABC affiliate, NBC, whatever. And of course, with the advent of streaming and stuff, we've gone like so far away from that. Like there are so many more avenues. And that's what we really want to cover today. Because, on the show, we always want to, be kind of focused, super focused on a particular topic. So, I want to dive right into this because I think this is going to be really interesting. So let me ask you, to get us started, TV marketing is, like I say, it's been around a long time, but it's evolved a lot. So let's talk strategy first. If you're a small business and you're thinking of advertising, how do you go about figuring out what is this right strategy, the industry, and how do you determining a target audience? I mean, where are you going to get your start in this?
Well, so that would be like the traditional way of advertising on television because you're doing it at a massive scale. So when you sit down, like I had years ago and ran my first few TV ads, they're going to ask that, okay, who is your audience? Where do you want it to play? What time do you want it to play? How many hundreds of thousands or millions of TVs do you want it to play on? And it was, kind of a very complicated procedure. And you call the local rep in and, the budget was extremely high. And you kind of have to figure all those little things out because your budget is, it's talking $3,000 to $10,000 for some basic TV advertising. And it's just a lot of thinking goes into it, a lot of risk into, okay, do I have the right commercial, right? And there's not a lot of testing. I mean, there is, but it's very expensive. Yeah. And so that's all things that you have to think about in the traditional TV way. But with what they're doing today with technology is it's kind of reduced a lot of the TV advertising risk on a large scale because you can target, right? With now the streaming TVs, you can say, hey, I just want to be into a household of this income, right? Or I just want to be into a household in this generic area. So it's come down, it's changed a lot. It's probably been the same for 80 to 100 years with the general TV, but it's changed a lot with digital TVs now. Okay,
so because of those changes, let's say, as we move away from traditional, and everybody's like very familiar with, streaming to a certain extent, but, we talk about the changes and the things you should be considering. If you're a business owner and you're just doing this for the first time, you don't necessarily know those different avenues. So can you take us through, I say, we know traditional, but let's talk about streaming. Let's talk about alternatives, like other things that you would consider TV advertising and such, and then how those kinds of platforms work.
So the when you're thinking of a non-traditional, not over the air, right? You're thinking, okay, for digital TVs, and what you need to do is kind of define your persona of your advertising person that you're looking for, and discuss that with the rep at the, like, let's say Hulu. You see ads for that. Okay, start as little as $1,000 or something. You're going to define who your customer is, and most likely as a small business, we all have some idea of who our customers are. And the major thing is going to be is advertising to them on a repetitious, level. You can't just run one ad. I've done that years ago, thinking, okay, if we blast this out to 10 million people, it'll work. And TV is a little bit different because you have to think about the advertiser is not specifically looking for you right now, right? And that makes a little bit of a difference. It's more passive advertising. You're going to want to hit them up 10, 15, 20 times. They're going to need to see you before you're really brandable. But I think most businesses have an idea of who they're looking for as customers, right? But again, we don't always know who they exactly are. But it is a repetition thing. With TV specifically, I think TV and radio are probably the same, right?
Yeah, very similar anyway.
Yeah.
So, but we've got different technologies. We've got different outlets. Like say your company is kind of representative of a different way of going about it. So can you get kind of into like, what do those alternative forms? Because like I say, we understand TV, we understand streaming nowadays. People don't realize how far you can kind of go with streaming. Hulu's a great example, but there's a lot of other stuff. But if we're thinking about it, it's like because you talk branding and you say, well, you got to be seen so many times. What are other ways, like say, including what you're doing, that people can really put their brand out there, especially within local markets? Because if you're like the local plumber, HVAC company, or lawyer, you want to be, seen as, you're just trying to dominate and really be known in the city or the region that you're in. I always like to think of the lawyers, right? If you drive along some interstates and you see the same billboard over and over and over again, essentially, I mean, they're, every like 2 miles, you get the same guy on the billboard, but they're building up that brand awareness. Yeah.
Who do you think first, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there are some alternative, forms, like I say, what you do included, that it allows for other cost-effective avenues, but they are still a form of TV advertising because you're still going to need the video. You're going to need to tell your story and things. So how does that stuff work? Because I think that's where the audience is not going to be familiar. Like I say, we know TV, we know streaming, and people are figuring that out. But what else do we have?
Yeah, so that's kind of how Tweeva started the idea of that local business. And I'll tell you a little story of here. My co-founders are restaurant owners, and they would play, general things on TV. And every once in a while, there'd be like a Pizza Hut or a Domino's commercial. And
a competitor.
It would be a competitor. And I just look over them and I jokingly say, "How dare they? How dare they in your establishment?" Right. Just as a joke. And, we kind of came up with, well, what if we could control a little bit about it? And so it would start the discussion of one of the co-founders would love to talk to all of his local customers. And, he knew what they did because they'd come in at 1 o'clock. Oh, I just finished a job. He was a plumber or a local HVAC, right? And he might have just heard somebody that he served food to that was having an issue. So he would say, hey, go put your business card up at the front and I'll do my best to try to connect you guys. So we kind of came up with the idea of, well, what if we made that business card bigger? What if we showed them on TV,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the idea was, how can we connect customers in their local communities for
Mm.
a lot less expensive than a TV?
Okay, that stuff kind of makes sense. So now we look at, so the idea essentially is, let's say you're a customer and you're going into a restaurant. If it's a bar, especially like a sports bar or something, right? What do we see? A bunch of TVs, we have different
Yep.
channels on and such. And same thing if you go into a coffee shop or whatever, they might have a single one and it's playing whatever. So you're saying that, it's possible now to kind of take over those TVs in a sense, where you can have like more local advertising, but you're not necessarily going through the advertising. I mean, obviously they've got to have the TV, the restaurant owner or whatever has to be plugged into the network. It's not just going to be like, hey, we take over your TV. They're part of a network or something, but it's giving you another outlet. And especially when we talk, any kind of bars, we talk, coffee shops and stuff, those are always local in nature. You're going to have the local crowd going there. You're going to have people that are, regular visitors. They might even, especially with remote work, they could be sitting in the coffee shop literally all day, while they work, they have, they drink. So what you're saying is like, thinking outside of the box of what TV advertising traditionally has been, the possibility exists to be able to show advertising and stuff on a very localized, basis, for companies, right?
Yeah, like per TV. So, even in the streaming world of the larger companies, there's minimums, and there's risk involved in,
Mm-hmm.
well, who's going to be playing the Hulu channel at a restaurant? I mean,
right.
if you seriously think about it, are you showing a movie there? What are you doing? Well, okay, well, we only capture residential. Okay, that's great. Try to get somebody off the couch to come to your restaurant. It's a lot
Mm-hmm.
harder. Now, if they're getting a haircut at the barber shop and I can show a
That's
sizzling
a great,
pizza, right?
yeah, that's a great one. A barber shop and stuff when you're
Yeah.
getting your haircut, and they'll often put TVs up, and
Yep.
so you could be
And they're
seeing
showing
the
something
other.
maybe local or a Netflix, special, but it's
Yeah,
nothing about the community.
right.
I'd love to see a picture of City Hall with the flag and the dew of the morning on a flower, and just, oh, that is my city. How beautiful is that?
Yeah, yeah, that's totally it. So like thinking about that, that's kind of cool because, and I can see, you mentioned a barber shop. You can think of a lot of venues where people are essentially, they're coming and going, but there's a reason to be there, and you have a kind of a moment in time where you have their attention.
Mhm.
Because they're sitting, they're doing something, and there's a lot of actual. I just started thinking, like drop your car off at the tire store or something, and you don't want to like head home. They're like, hey, we're going to be done in an hour. I'm like, that's not worth even leaving. I'll sit down, and you could have those kinds of advertisements and such running on there. So yeah, because also when you talk any kind of cable, like TV advertising, cable, the companies like Comcast and stuff, what they're doing is they're like bundling the streaming with some local ads, and they've been doing this for years.
Yep.
But they'll have your traditional like 30-second spot, but they're not running it very often. What they're doing is they're bundling it with the streaming and then saying, hey, on top of it, you'll get 10,000 streaming views or 20,000 or whatever, because they're trying to provide more value. But are they really doing that? Like, do I really, because they're also trying to sell those local spots.
Yeah, it's not the same as running your ad 10 times, 20 times in a local pizza shop or a local tire shop. And giving me just a 30-second clip may not be long enough for that's, again, 80 years, 100 years, we've been doing the 30-second clip. What do we have?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, we have short form content, which is the TikTok or YouTube Shorts, which is incredibly popular with, the newer demographic. But then we have the 30-second ad, and then we also have what they refer to as like infotainment or a little bit longer form content. And so if you think about it, I think it's somewhere in between. I don't want to watch a 10-second if I'm getting my tires changed, but I don't really want to watch a 30-second. I don't want to watch a 10-minute. But if the chiropractor gets on and he talks about, hey, when you're sitting in your car, if you lean over a little bit to the right, over time, your body's not straight. And you got to sit straight, make sure that your body's, especially on long
Yeah.
car rides, you might have future back problem. And I'll say, okay, that's a good tip. That's a really neat, something I don't know. And you see that a couple times and, oh, my back hurts. Oh, I got to call that guy I saw. I keep seeing him around my town. Now, if you think about it, it's not a large city, right? It's someone
Yeah.
very, very local to me. And now what am I, 5 minutes away from that local chiropractor? And this works across all types of businesses, pavers install or pool cleaners or pool installers. Anybody in that local community could benefit from it.
Yeah, that's okay. So I totally see that. And that, like, with the idea that instead of having a 30-second like promo, you can, tell more of a story, give advice, tips. You open up the possibilities of the content you can actually use, for your advertisement and such.
Yes.
Let's talk about, because this leads into like the role of storytelling. So now we know that, hey, there might be some ways we can unlock content, okay, and be able to see more. So go deeper into the content part and how either you're telling stories or, like say, what you mentioned with advice. Let's go down that a bit.
Yeah. So the storytelling piece is kind of a new way to think about it, because you're not going to be limited to those 30 seconds. And I'll throw in here real quick, because I didn't want to interrupt you, but with a small TV network like Twiva, it's not traditional TV where you have 30 minutes of programming or 26 minutes of programming. You have the whole hour, right? We're not specifically running a program. So we are looking for people to create content that is watchable for people either sitting in a bar or sitting in a restaurant. That's specifically. Now, that also is the same for people that are developing content for YouTube or developing content for Vimeo or any of the, online online mega social networks. But it's not exactly the same, because I don't think most people are looking up, hey, give me a 3-minute clip on a chiropractor tip. They might be looking for a local chiropractor. But that content that you create has to have a little bit of the story line in it. It's not the quick, what can we fit in 30 seconds? It really should be something about, I always give the model of this old house. Everybody likes to watch the contractors fix, a fence or fix the stairs and then put the little wooden knobs on the top when they're done. And, it's like a before and after. And a lot of people watch that show for years and years. But I jokingly say, what is 300 million people know 3 or 4 contractors on that show. I mean, right. It's not like you can call them and say, hey, come by. Now, if that was a local contractor in my town, I'd have more reason to scan the QR code and say, hey, I just saw this video of you rearranging landscaping in the front of someone's house in Apopka. That's where I'm from.
Yeah.
Come on over. Give me a quote. And he's like, yeah, I'm 3 minutes down the road.
Yeah. So it's like taking, if you're thinking about it, and this kind of stuff applies, like you mentioned, like social media, YouTube platforms, Vimeo and stuff, and of course, Facebook and whatnot, because you're using that longer form content and you can stretch it across multiple platforms. But you're building up not necessarily recognition. You are building it for your brand. Okay. But your example is great to say, hey, I see them working on, this project and this. And what you're doing is you're taking, instead of a 30-second commercial, potentially like it's not going to be an hour-long program, but you could take a 5 or 10-minute clip and you can put that within the network.
Exactly.
And you're covering something specific. So, if it's the pavers, for, driveways and stuff, you can see, what's involved in their work, and you can get familiar with the idea that they really know what they're doing. And that's kind of a company that you might want to, deal with if you have that. So you build up like that, you've got 300 million people that really know those 4 people really well. Well, you could do that same thing in the city that you're in, where, maybe you've got 20,000 people or 50,000 people or something in that city, but they really know those few companies more so than just the brand, they are familiar with what they do. Yeah, I can totally see how that would work, especially if you take any kind of, where you have the business owner and they're sometimes the face of the company.
Yes.
So if you have a smaller company, they can make themselves the face. They're not worried about, they're not going to leave or anything, an employee would.
Yep.
And they can be asked for by name. Now, as they grow, they're not necessarily going to be the person out there, but a lot of times they're still the person giving the quote or anything.
They still could be,
and it's like,
the face. Still content. Yeah. They
yeah,
can still
exactly.
be the face
So
in front and say, hey, I still saw this video. I mean, even if it was 5 years old, I saw
Mhm.
that the lady that you put the pavers in, and
Yeah.
she had kind of that steep, side on the house, and you put the retaining wall. I want something just like that. Well, where did you see me? I don't know. I was eating chicken wings over at the bar, and I saw this little clip come up. Now,
Yeah.
were you looking for it? No. Was it something in the back of your mind that you always wanted to do? Yes. Does it look too hard for
Yeah.
you to do? Yes. So you call.
Mhm.
And that's, again, this little local connection that can happen if you're creating the content. So it's not that contractors don't have the ability. It's not like you don't have a 4K camera in your back pocket anymore, right?
Yeah, right.
It's just, you don't know exactly how to get it out there.
Yeah, because like I say, we see all sorts of that, that kind of stuff go on. In a sense, you're using that camera, and it's kind of like influencers and stuff, how they do it with social media, and then they build these large followings and stuff. They're doing it on a local level, and they're essentially making themselves famous.
Yes.
They say, I go back to those like the billboards and stuff, and you see that lawyer's face on it all the time. They built their brand, but they built it partly around themselves too, because they're always in those kinds of advertising. Well, you're using video, and you're introducing people not just to your company but to yourself, and making yourself a little bit of that that famous person locally, because they get to know you and they see you everywhere. And then eventually it's like, hey, they invite you over, give me a quote. You're that guy.
Yeah.
You actually showed up.
Now,
So
I
that's
have a lot of lawyer commercials here too in Orlando. I have never been to a restaurant. I've never been to a place or a bar where I saw them. I've never have. And so can we change that idea of, okay, anybody's on TV is so popular that they would never be around me? That's an old stat. Can we change that to say, well, I saw you on TV. That's cool. You're right here, or you're 2 tables away. Hey, that's the guy. Hey, Joe, I saw you on a couple commercials. Love to talk to you about something. Hey, here's my number. And that could, again, our slogan is for the locals, because everything that we were talking about with the co-founders and when we were building it was like, okay, well, let's just not make it big. Let's not try to sell out to Pepsi and the big boys. Let's try to make this all local, because in the end, it's like we drive America, right? The small businesses are doing a lot of the work on the ground. So to build anything to those local relationships, again, in the storytelling piece, anything that matters, I would say, even how long you've been in business. Hey, we've been doing this for 20 years, 40 years. My grandfather did this. My dad did this. Multi-generational. That's neat information to know,
Yeah, it's another way of like using it, because you can go a little bit longer telling the story. Of especially if you've got anything that's like, if your company's been around a long time, so you have a story that's, it's a guarantee. You might be multi-generational and stuff, and really telling that and telling how you've been kind of part of the community and everything. So, you can go a lot deeper with it by being able to take the content to be a little bit longer, but you want to put it out there where, everybody locally is going to, know and see you. And so it's a whole different way of approaching TV advertising, because you're not, you're not worried about putting it on the TV.
Not advertising. It's almost like you create, content for to-dos and tutorials, and what do people want to watch? It's a little bit different than just saying, I want to put an ad and get as many leads as possible.
Yeah, and like I say, but it really builds kind of a deeper awareness than you would have. Instead of just seeing the logo and the brand and everything that you normally would see. Like we have in my area, there's a large plumbing company and they do HVAC and stuff. And I don't have a clue who owns the company or anything. I've never seen, but I've seen their commercials. I've seen, on billboards, and they use a smiley face, for their logo and such. I don't have a clue beyond that. I know that they've probably been around a long time because I know they're a big company.
Yeah.
So it's like driving a deeper connection. And I think for smaller businesses, that are much newer, earlier, and even if they don't have a history, they can build the awareness around them as a company.
Yes.
And around those owners and founders and stuff. And it doesn't really matter what you do. If you're serving, if your audience in your market is the local community, homeowners, whatever it may be, but it's consumers in general. You really can drive that narrative about your company.
Yeah, it's definitely for, like you talked about, the little guy that goes to the same restaurant, or the landscaper that goes to the same, get his 2-slice pizza and Coke special, right? And he just sees that TV there and is like, well, if I just shot a clip of one of my best customers and I had that playing every day, I bet you I'd be able to land at least 5 or 6 or 10 new customers every 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is exactly for the little person in there, to be able to compete a little bit, with the big boys. We're not showing TV advertising for car companies or anything else. It's to benefit the small guy.
So, let's talk a little bit, because it's TV advertising is really evolving. So where do you see things going? Because, some of the stuff you're doing is kind of touching on the surface of totally new avenues. They say we've been kind of, I say for a long time, 80 years or whatever, it was TV advertising is this way and this way only. And this is how, how it works. But now, because of the internet, because of our interconnection with everything, like say, smart TVs and such, it's really evolving. And I think there's some like really incredible new ideas on what it can look like coming out. So where do you see it kind of like going over this next, these next 5-10 years or whatnot, of stuff that, businesses are going to be able to do?
Well, I think everything is becoming more local. I think we're on the cycle of coming down to local. Like, we've built the industrial, big companies can do everything better for at least 40 years, 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're tending to go more local. So I think the idea, like with the internet you're talking about, is, okay, I want to work on the internet in a small little town somewhere, as long as they have gig Ethernet. When I travel far. But when I come home, I want to be local. I want the little coffee shop. I want the grandma's pizza dough recipe that's been passed down. I don't want necessarily a franchise thing. And the same will go for people in relationships with small businesses, and hence the reason why so much of a push in the storytell. It's very important. But I really think it's going to be at more of a local level. If you look back, maybe you have to go back more than 150 years or 100 years, but think about how many people you did business with. Well, today, let's start today. I got Amazon, I got Walmart, and Target. That's 3.
Yeah.
Who else? Right? A couple of big companies provide everything.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you would have a milkman, right? You have a peddler, not a peddler, it's a cobbler, right? For your shoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have tailor. Probably your relationships were 20 to 30 people. So I wonder, we've gone very far on the industrial side. Do we pull back a little bit and go back to maybe not 30 relationships, but maybe 10 or 15? Is there somebody out there that would love to make fresh bread? Is there someone out there that, would do these local things? So I think in the form of TV advertising and in all of business, I think people are kind of going back to a little bit more of local relationships. They want to get away from the computer screen. They want to go meet somebody and talk and have that relationship, especially after COVID, right? That split us a lot. So.
Well, I see, I can totally see what you're talking about, because there are like like we have a lot of different companies, but if you think about the companies we interact with regularly, like you mentioned Walmart and Target and stuff, and then, throw in fast food chains and such,
Yeah.
where we're, how many times do you visit? But there's been a bit of a resurgence of like small town America,
Yeah.
where certain communities are really starting to fix up, their downtown areas and such. And you have local coffee shops and people wanting to get out. And because of remote work, people are willing to uh, look at other places. It's like, I don't want to be in an office all day, but I don't even want to be at home all day.
Right.
I want to, maybe I go to a
Yep.
coffee shop or I go to my favorite restaurant and stuff, and they're willing to, that I can, occupy a table for a couple of hours, but I can be around people. And that's where like different types of advertising can actually still play, in the background. These people they're not sitting in front of TV screens like we would traditionally think. So they want to move around, and they're going to do it in a lot of different ways. So I think, people are really, they definitely want to get out. They want to, like, I think it helps small businesses a ton, and it gives small businesses, knowing that people are doing this, there are more avenues. And the beauty is, like, as an agency, we do a lot of programmatic advertising, and I like to tell how that particular outlet for advertising, which includes like streaming video and audio and such, at one time it was only for large brands and stuff. It was not available. Large brands could do it, large agencies could do it and stuff for those brands because of the buying power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the last 5 years, it's been made so even the smallest company with a few $100s could do some of it, if they really wanted to. And I think that's where different forms of advertising come in to help small businesses where they can compete and everything is local for them. Walmart with their big budget advertises nationally, but the small retailer, clothing store or something, is only worried about their community. So the more things that we have that can help them advertise, whether it's TV or something that's, let's say, a streaming audio or something, it gives them the outlets, and that's going to be really important. So,
Yeah, I think most small businesses, like you said before, if you live in a community of 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, you couldn't service 50,000 people. You can't service 20,000 people, depending on the business. Like if you service them every 6 months, yes, maybe, but there's just a certain amount of limit. So what is really the problem? It's most likely the small business's brandability or their marketing ability or the budget. It's one of those things. And if we can help those small businesses do those, we like to say, or I would like to brand them as like a community expert. And then just people think, oh, if it's that, I call him or this person. You could have a couple of brand experts in a city.
Yeah, I've always, when it comes to companies like some of the, our clients and stuff, and when they're in smaller cities, I always tell them, like, because of the affordability of the different types of advertising and the size of their location, you should own it. So if you're able to tell your story, and really I like this kind of, with this TV advertising, if you go this route, because it's not just putting your brand out there. You're integrating yourself sort of into the fabric of the community, because people get to know you, get to know your company and such by using this type of advertising, and not just think of 30-second commercial spots.
It's not the 30-second ad. It might be your small business, like if you sell honey or if you sell Etsy products or something. Okay, well, what did you do at the farmer's market the other morning? Can you share that? Can you share that to 20 TVs around the community? And somebody might see that specific thing that you're building and like it. It could be like, have you ever seen homemade birdhouses on TV?
Yeah.
For your local city? And it's like, it's not there. But with a platform that's inexpensive enough, it can be there.
Yeah, I say, because, and in a sense, because you mentioned Etsy, that's why a lot of people have gone, and that helps them, to be able to sell stuff all over the country, ship it, but there's a lot of Etsy shops, if you're going, it's an outlet, it's one avenue, but if you're going to be going that avenue, why not try to really make your
Yes.
local community understand what you're even doing, because a lot of the stuff is like really, cool, the items that they make, and could sell a lot locally, and you're already doing it. So if you were advertising some of that and building awareness locally, people would understand. Like say honey or something like that. When you're shipping, or you're going to be at the farmer's market. If the advertising is inexpensive enough, and you typically have like a regular shop and you're supplementing, you're like, hey, come down, see us. There's just a lot you could do. And it is really it goes back to owning your market, but being willing to tell your story and be more creative in how you're doing it.
Yes. And that's applicable to not only to the TV, but once you start to learn how to create that content and that brand and that story, you become a content creator. And so you can use that content on not only TVs, but you can share that to all the major social media companies. And like we were talking about previously, it's about building the content that you have. So when people start searching, broken shower head, or my back hurts, or back hurts car and your city, boom, somebody has a little piece of content. And it doesn't really matter on a lot of these things how old the content is, but is it beneficial? Does it help the client, the customer? And the more content that you have, and the more that think about it, a lot of people are doing the same thing to help their clients every day, but we're not really recording it. And maybe we don't know how, but we can always talk to an expert about that.
Yeah. Okay, so we're at the end of this episode. I always like to ask, what are the takeaways that you see, for people, and advice you would offer if you're trying to go down this route? How do you just get started with it?
Well, my first piece of advice would be to just start. I hated the camera right at the beginning, but you do it 25 times and you throw all the 23 pieces out. And then you just say, okay, I get a little bit what it is. Guys, it's not film anymore. We don't pay to develop it. You can record what you do today as a contractor, as anything. See what it looks like. Play it back a couple times. But just start creating that content, and then talk to an agency that can help you use that content in any form. Get it published, because you may not see that today, but you are going to see a benefit of it in the future. So start creating content. That's going to be number one. And I'll leave that.
Okay.
That's it. Just start there.
Okay, cool. So, to finish up, if anybody wanted to talk to you, because you are putting together, such a network for TV advertising and stuff, how would they get a hold of you? What should they be, what do they do to reach out?
Well, you can find us online at tweva.com. It's TWEVA. And, if you have a small business that has foot traffic, we'd love to have a TV in the business. We also share some of the advertising revenues with you, so it's beneficial to you and to the other clients that are walking in and out of your business. But, just hit us up on any social media. We're on all of the platforms, and join the network. We'd love to have you.
Great. And once again, I am Cash Miller. I'm the CEO of Titan Digital. I've been your host to another great episode of Marketing Masters, the Agency Power Show. I think that's it for today. It's been great having you, David.
Thanks for having me, Cash. Love the conversation.
It was a good one.